Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter back with another episode of Soul Sacrifice Delta. Now in this one I was actually planning on doing another dual or triple story from the Sorceress Deeds. Because if you remember from Avalon, we still have Of Men and Beasts, which is Monstrux. We still have the Reaper's Gloom from the Reaper. And we do have one left for Grimm, which is a Voice Lost for Kalem. That being said, we just did a grinding session. We just did some individual stories for Halloween. I thought it would be nice if now we go and we do a chapter of the main story because it's good for the palate. I think good balance. So let's do that, and then the next episode after that we'll go into the Sorceress Deeds. So what we want to be doing is going into Revised. The Memories Remained. So there's suppressed memories of something that happened before the end of the world. So this chapter is called Destiny Deferred. It's only 4 chapters, so depending on the length, I may actually go and do 2 chapters. We'll have to see, but I won't finish it. I will go back and do the other stories for the other ones as well. Okay, so this first one, let's jump in.
I'd been skeptical for much of my journey, but no doubt remained. Things were progressing exactly as the Red Sorcerer had described. If the prophecy held true, Magusar and I were damned to slay one another for all eternity. How many times have I felt this ache in my heart? If the prophecy is true, the world will repeat. Grimm's eternal recursion. What number am I? Had I not met Red, I'd have lived out my days without ever knowing, without ever doubting. Who can say what ignominious ends my prior lives had met? What good does knowing the true nature of the world do a man who cannot change it? Had I the means to break free of this fate of death and murder? As I made my way to poor, mad Magusar's side, I noticed it. His fearsome aura had suddenly disappeared.
Okay, so we're going up against an Incubus, which we just did in the previous episode, so I may cut out some portions of this, depending on where we're at, but this would be actually a good excuse to read the lore on Necropolis. This is down in, I'm getting lost, I think the east? I could be wrong, I don't know. There was once a king whose pride and self-regard knew no bounds. Reality could never hope to live up to the scale of his ambition. His forces made constant incursions into other kingdoms as he strived to extend the boundaries of his modest realm. Sounds a lot like other human kings. With attention focused on expansion, the king neglected domestic affairs, and his subjects grew wary of constant conflict with others. Rebellion broke out when they could take it no more. At that time, the king's forces were on yet another expedition. The army had never been a formidable fighting force, and was no match for the rebels, as such was quickly defeated. And so all the ambitions of the king came to naught. A new dawn broke. The man who had led the rebellion against the vainglorious king came to power. The kingdom barely recovered from its period of turbulence, had new challenges looming on the horizon. Alarming reports reached the new king that the neighboring regent was planning to take advantage of the disarray in his realm and invade. After all it had been through, the kingdom was on its knees. There was no way that it would be able to muster the forces to resist an invading army. The kingdom had a severe shortage of both men and weaponry. After all the years of fighting futile wars and the bloody rebellion that came thereafter, the only thing the kingdom had a surplus of was dead bodies. The new king was at a total loss. How could he keep his kingdom safe from threats it faced? The new king had been proud to ascend to the throne. Born into a poor family, he had never been involved in politics. Indeed, he had made it to the top purely as a result of his own strength and determination. But now, unable to come up with a plan, he sensed the dissatisfaction growing amongst his subjects. They feared him to be yet another ineffectual ruler. History was repeating itself. The new king had once mocked the old ruler, but now he was booed and jeered. The new king was learning fast. He now knew the true weight of the crown and how lonely the head that wears it. He thought about the solitude the old king must have known. How ironic that it was only by overthrowing the old king and taking his place that he could truly understand him. The crown had become an albatross around the king's neck. As the dissatisfaction from amongst his subjects grew, the pressure pushed him to the verge. Just when he feared that he could take no more, he heard a strange voice and saw a particular chalice floating before him. The king did as the voice told him. He left the castle and headed out into the streets. His destination was a huge mound of corpses, all those who had lost their lives in a recent uprising. Among the bodies, he saw many who had once fought alongside him. The new king took the bodies of each of his fallen comrades and buried them. He made graves for all of them, but they were not normal graves. Wherever he buried the bodies, sharp blades sprouted from the ground. The king had gained the power to forge weapons from the bodies of the dead. He tended to those weapons as someone might tend to their garden. Now the weapons that his kingdom had lacked were available in abundance, and were more than powerful than 100 conventional weapons. The king's forces swept all before them. The kingdom's territorial expanded rapidly until it covered the map. It flourished and grew prosperous. The overwhelming military prowess of the kingdom meant that no neighboring force dared to attack, but still the new king did not stop. He continued to harvest new weapons. Eventually, he ran out of the dead bodies from which the weapons sprang. The king decided to replenish his supply of corpses by having all the criminals in his realm summarily executed. Even the most trifling crime was now punishable by death. His advisors, horrified by what they were seeing, warned the king about this rashness, but he would not heed their words. The new king thought to himself. When the kingdom had been in peril, everyone blamed him. No one knows how much he suffered and how lonely he had been. His advisors' prattle showed that they did not understand him. He would pay their judgment no heed. All the solitary king had to believe in was himself and his own authority. As time went on, the king grew steadily more despotic. He was more unaware of what was happening to him. The old king, whose reign he had brought to a bloody end, had known the same solitude, and had closed himself off from the world. This was what had led him to his fruitless pursuit of glory. Now, just as the old king had, the new ruler neglected his own realm as he sought to subjugate others. When a ruler no longer trusts his subjects, it's inevitable that he will seek to bolster his own authority by inspiring fear in all around him. Once a monarch embarks on this path, he cannot be stopped. Through all this, the king continued to bury dead bodies in order to cultivate weapons, but now he had made a discovery. He realized that when he buried strangers, the weapons that sprang forth were less powerful than when he buried people he had been close to. The closer to the bond they shared, the more powerful the weapon. This led the king to falsely accuse his closest advisors of heinous crimes for which they had executed. Oof. The weapons that sprang forth from their bodies were more powerful than the king had created before, and so it came to pass that one day the king found that he was alone. He had an abundance of weapons, but no one left who was willing to wield them. His subjects had all risen up against him. The king now faced the same fate as his predecessor. Rebel forces encircled him alone in his castle. Knowing that the end was at hand, the king decided to end his own life, but not before he wrote a final request. He asked that his body be buried in the earth. Some years passed. The kingdom had long since vanished. When the king had been laid to rest, blades had burst forth from the soil with terrifying force. The blades had spread relentlessly like giant vines that came to cover the kingdom, but they did not stop at the kingdom's borders. They broke the boundaries of surrounding lands. It was as if the king's futile campaign of expansion and subjugation was being continued after his death. Though his body was gone, the desire to conquer lived on. There were, of course, no subjects left to rule, but for the king who has never trusted people, perhaps this was a fitting end. Deep and dark. Okay, let's go and beat up the incubus. While I traveled with Magusar, Red Hood sent me many messages. She wanted to convince me, the doubter, of the truth of the oracle. Change is in the air. As the world repeats, the moment of certainty awaits. Where I thought I sensed my companion, another monster appeared. So some hardcore vine weapons. Am I all alone? Yeah, I'm all on my lonesy here. I'm probably going to cut out most of this battle because we just did Incubus in the last video. There's no reason to have to see this hunt again.
Instead, I saw a familiar sorcerer sitting on a rock.
Well, this is a coincidence.
The 13th Persapius. Why had Avalon's master come to such a place? Every corner of the land bore the scars of Magusar's rampage. The world's end drew near, true to Grimm's prediction. Avalon, Sanctuarium, Grimm. It was a summit of all three leaders. Grimm's hierarch, Terwin, had proffered a scheme, a way to disrupt the endless cycle.
A blasphemy against the whole of human history.
Persapius had refused, but the agents of Grimm advanced their plan just the same. However, their plan required the Ars Magica. The memory of Persapius. In order to get it, they would need to sacrifice him.
What triggered this aberration? It was the author's newfound confidence in the future and in fate. An idea that originated in Grimm's prophecy and from Red Hood. The journey with Magusar was meant to end with an eternal bloodbath. It happened a moment before the end, a corruption of the world's recurrence.
The Order of Grimm aimed to stop time for all the world. If the world never reached its end, the painful cycle could go no further. Terwin had explained her plan to them in full. A familiar tool would play a vital function. The apple shades Red kept. The illusions they bring about are unique. I can say from experience, the feeling is akin to dreaming. Furthermore, she claims they interlink the minds of those under this spell. Years can pass within these dreams in the span of a few of the waking world's hours. Evacuate all of humanity into this state, and the specter of the end is banished. Just one problem remained: how to make the illusion span the globe. The Order sought the answer in the pages of the Ars Magica. An amplifier for illusions. Persapius himself confirmed that such a method did exist. Yet his next words were resolute.
Fleeing into illusion means the defeat of mankind.
Okay, well, it sounds like we got one leader not agreeing with the other. I wonder what Sympatha is up to. Okay, so we got an extermination pack against the Red Riding Hood, who we're very familiar with. I just read a chapter, so I'm not going to read the Luna Wastes. We're just going to go and get it on. man yearns to leave proof of his living. The old man intends to do battle with the world's nemesis, Magusar himself. The old man adds one more thing. I would do it before the Order of Grimm can make its move. I search for this Magusar gone mad, but find no trace. Even as I felt the world convulse around me, a monster appeared. So the race is on. Grimm wants to pretty much put everybody in the Matrix and escape this reoccurring hell. And Persepius thinks that he's going to go and defeat Magusar. Not sure what that would help, because anybody who defeats Magusar seems to be overtaken by Magusar.
There's something going on. But what?
But hey, if the old man feels confident, it makes me feel confident. Great. What? Should I sack him? Oh, I'm dead. Whoops. Okay, well that normally doesn't happen. I'm going to keep that in there so you can see that. You can fail quests in this game. Why wasn't I wearing armor? He just pwned Persepius. What happens if we sacrifice Persepius? Never tried that. Oh no, he's gonna become a spirit. Watch this, it's gonna chain up the monster here. Hey, we killed the monster. But did we win or do we fail? I don't know. Complete, okay. Ugh. I've always saved him. I've never decided to just sacrifice him in the middle of that hunt. But we are a legend for doing so, apparently. Yeah. I'm dead. I think I need to revive him, actually. Probably. Contradiction. Oh, this is the first time I've ever seen this. So I've created a contradiction. Persepius is dead, greatly contradicting the journal. Until the contradiction is rectified, you will not be able to proceed through the journal. That's cool. I did not know that. He's in here somewhere. Persepius. So let me tab into him details. Undo his death. Just takes a few tears. We can rewrite history. It's just a book. Okay, so he's back. Welcome back from the dead, my man. Sorry I did you in there. That was pretty cool to see. Wait a second. Do I have to clear the quest again? I don't know. I do. It's not gonna let me proceed. Wow. Okay. Don't worry. I will use editing to get rid of this. There we go. Oh, it's red. For the first time I failed it, I thought that was me, because I wear her outfit so often. Well then. That certainly complicates things.
The monster regained human form, a familiar one at that. It was the third Red Hood, Semelia. What was happening? She seemed unreal somehow, and I felt dizzy looking at her.
Please, think this is...
With that, the red sorcerer vanished into smoke. Was it just an illusion? It seemed the stuff of dreams. As I looked around, I saw it. There, where Samelia had stood, was a fragmented apple. No. Why would she leave such a message? What had she hoped to say? The apple shades had already been used. Grimm's plan was now in action. I stood in a world of illusion.
A step had already been taken into the world of illusions. Where did Magusar disappear to? Magusar, or the terrible beast that he became, was stranded in reality, which should not have been possible at all. How did the world end in a manner that never occurred before? The answer is linked to the Order of Grimm, a group that should have never existed in the first place. They appeared at some point along the countless repetitions of reality. They were an oddity, an aberration.
The unending dream the Order sought to make. It must have happened as I made my way to face Magusar. Persapius sat stock still, holding his head and mumbling to himself. The souls of the dead inhabit this illusory world too, provided they dwell in living flesh. Persapius remembered.
You know, I'm already dead. I was killed.
It happened just before this illusion consumed us. He rose against Magusar, bringer of the world's end, but failed and paid the price. Terwin then swept in and sacrificed the old man. He was just a soul now, bound to her right arm.
I cannot remember anything new.
No, not even his own death. And so the Ars Magica passed to Grimm, and they took action. The world around me was illusion. As soon as I realized, I found myself surrounded.
Wow, plot thickens. Persapius has been killed by Magusar. Terwin does the good one and sweeps in to sacrifice him because, man, can you imagine if Magusar did? He'd be the next Persapius. That would not be good. And now we're going up against a personal battle against Lizard Man. So let's read up on what Lizard Man is. The king was a powerful ruler. He had managed to obtain practically everything he had desired. Yet the more he gained, the more empty he felt. Everything a man gains, he will one day lose. King or no, every man is fated to die, and one cannot take his territory to the grave. The king thought he was more than that. The sheer power he had claimed had begun to give him the notion that, as a king, he was more than a mere mortal. You might even say he thought of himself as closer to the gods. A god king could not simply die of old age like a mere human. Even if the gods were able to die, the world would suffer for it. Eventually, the king proclaimed his divinity and began the search for eternal life, so that he could become more than human. How could a man claim eternal life? How could a man approach those gods? The king summoned wise men from all corners of the earth to find the answers to these riddles. Amongst them was one sorcerer. Even among sorcerers, the man was seen as an outsider. He lived according to his whims, refusing to abide by the code. He was obsessed with the pursuit of a certain black rite. The question of whether or not this black rite even existed was in doubt. So dubious was it that the most thought it was a mere myth, a fairy tale. It was obvious that there were no sorcerers amongst them who could perform the rite. It was said that the rite could grant immortality and eternal youth. Its existence was glimpsed in ancient texts, and there were none who knew the truth of it. This was the mysterious rite that the sorcerer sought. As to whether the sorcerer himself hungered for immortality and eternal youth, not quite. His motivation was only a simple curiosity, the desire to witness an unknown sorcery. The king, on the other hand, did not care what means were undertaken towards the end of gaining immortality. Their interests were aligned. The king took an interest in the sorcerer's tale and pledged to assist him on this quest. With the king's coffers at his disposal, the sorcerer summoned his fellow scholars, forming a society wise in the subjects of history and artifacts. He dispatched the society members across the world, hoping to gather information that would lead to the discovery of the rite. With time, they happened upon a lead, a reference in an ancient tome to a near-forgotten rite called Elixir. It had been created by chance long, long ago. It was easy to understand why it had not been passed down. Anyone who understands the rules of this world would know. Something had happened to the person who performed the rite. There are laws of desire and their price. One must pay a suitable price to see his desires granted. The logic of it was simple in the extreme. The greater the wish, the greater the sacrifice demanded. Such has the law of the world ever been. The price of the rite was described in the tome. The sacrifice to be paid for eternal life was oneself. The entire explanation of the rite elixir was hard to follow. Take the likely explanation that it was an accident. Surely the man who made the eternal life possible must have considered the philosophical question of what human life is. Perhaps that is why the description of the rite is so abstract. The tome gave the following hint. Man has always been granted eternal life, though he does not realize it. Man is too fearful of the death of the individual. Though an individual may perish, the life of his race approaches immortality. By leaving descendants, the life of the human race is prolonged. One might even suggest that if you consider a man's descendants an extension of his self, his life is indeed eternal. However, mankind cannot take this view. Why is that? It is because man has self-awareness. They only see gloom in the end of the consciousness. The death of an individual and the grief that comes with it is a trial particular to mankind. If self-awareness is the obstacle that prevents mankind from enjoying the immortality that has always been afforded by his race, then one needs to only remove that obstacle. By discarding the shell of individuality, one can taste eternal life. Offer yourself, then. That is the price of eternal life. Thus did the tome lay out the laws of the rite elixir. It continued with an even more abstract and abstruse description. Discard the self and become part of the greater whole of history. By tearing down the walls of individuality, one can assimilate into others, without them even realizing, as if stealing one's breath. The moment then the self is lost, the distinction between oneself and others is lost also, just as there are no borders between the seas. As merely a transparent soul, having both lost body and consciousness, one must find a place within one's descendants living in the future. This may be called symbiosis, and it may also be called parasitism. Should the vessel of one body grow old and wither, one must simply travel to the next. The soul shall travel ever on into the distant future, riding on the currents of the memory, never drowning, never being consumed. The description of elixir ended there. Was there anyone who could comprehend it? Perhaps none did. The fact that elixir remained a lost rite was proof enough of that. Not a single person who attempted to reproduce the rite was successful. It is said the reason for this was because not a single one of them could completely cast off the self. Perhaps the self is the bedrock of all human desire. If it could be cast off so easily, perhaps man would not have continued down the path of bloodshed it trends to this day. Although their attempts ended in failure, those who attempted the rite did not escape unharmed. They were transformed into monsters, a result of the prices they had paid for only partially casting off the self. These monsters became known as the Lizard Men. No one knows what became of the tome which told the tale of Elixir. Yet, the fact that lizard men are born even now tells us that the tome has not been lost and continues to be read to this day. Deep. Okay, so there is one thing you have to know. You cannot save lizard man. You have to kill them. You can try to revive them, but what happens is they just keep regenerating. So, in this quest, we have no choice. The Grimm found the Black Rite Grimoire inside the Ars Magica. It is the magic created by a sorcerer called Alice. Grimoire is an old name for magical tomes. The living and dead are one in the world of illusion. Now sacrificed spirits of the right arm appear in their real forms, just like Persepius. We were playing against a dead man who died in the quest, and we failed because the dead man died. It's so meta. You could be dead spirit, but in the illusionary world, but if you die, then you're dead. Whatever that means. But here we are.
I see. It was too late.
So, this is to be our victim.
Okay, we're going to make easy work of these guys. Again, anything that is a humanoid type of creature, they're fast, so just use the feather and your spear, and you'll be okay. Feather. He just like clones himself. There's so many of them. So it can get very chaotic to know which one you're going up against. There's one down, so just hold down the L button to lock on, and you'll lock on something. And just hit it. I don't know what it is, but I will hit it. I should show you at least one of them and what they do. What they look like. Persepius kicking their butt, though. Where be they? They're so fast I could barely see them. Oh man, they're blowing me up and poisoning me? Can't have that. I like how Persepius is more of an arm user. Just smack everybody down, old man. Oh, we gotta kill him. We can't. Trust me, you can sacrifice him. He just starts the battle all over again. It's very frustrating. Persepius, you're not gonna help? Oh wait, that's because he's dead. He can't really be absorbing souls if he's dead. Guess it makes sense.
I'm too weak to move.
Oh, shut up. Oh, there's even more. You just gotta sacrifice all of them.
I heard her voice in my head.
It wasn't meant to be this way.
Was it Samilia? The illusion links the minds of those it swallows. Samilia's voice rang out inside me.
The apple shades. They were never meant for this.
It was a black rite they'd used, ancient and powerful. It extended the apple shade's reach across the entire world. In this new world, bereft of gods, Terwin tried to become one. Persepius's voice was fading fast.
May the words I've been entrusted reach as many ears as possible.
He said it was his mission. As a man who'd given up his life to serve as a vessel of memory.
I fear I can do naught but leave all this to you.
He meant to entrust his memories to my own right arm. To offer up the fragment of his soul that remained as sacrifice.
No matter how dire the memory, it can still be passed on. Let it, in time, become new hope.
His final words seemed almost like a prayer.
This old man was sacrificed before by Terwin. But the illusory world created a manifestation of his soul. Now it dwells in the author's right arm, the very essence of the man's soul, along with the inherited memories of the Master of Avalon. You were entrusted with a world of knowledge and experience, the depth of which matches the very history of sorcery itself. Over time, the journal's author will face fate and realize what must be done.
So if that doesn't confuse you already, it will be explained, but we're going to go into something that's going to help with that a little bit, which is the chain of history, a reflection.
The collective memory passed down to each Persepius is vast. It spans far more than magic. It represents the whole of human knowledge. And what the old man strove to pass on was more than knowledge alone. I need only raise my right arm to listen to his voice within to know that.
The world is unfair at its core. To mankind, history reads as a series of cruel barbs. Death, the worst of them all. However, it is precisely because of our mortality that we endeavor to leave some form of legacy behind. For most, that legacy is children. As copies of ourselves, they take a piece of us onward to eternity. The office of Persepius, too, is charged with leaving a legacy. Delivering the wealth of human knowledge to those yet to come. When this cruel world beats you down, turn and look behind you. See the long, unbroken chain of history protected by these men. See that we frail humans have fought tooth and nail to survive this crucible. At times, that trail can stoke the fire of courage in those who come after. The memories of all those with the name of Persepius are more than just a history. They are hope. Taking in this stream of unbroken experience allows a man to see certain things. For each time mankind has cursed the world, we've loved it twice as much in return. That is why we cling to life, living between the earth and sky, why we fight to the end. To gorge ourselves on an easy life of endless dreams is to forget our animal nature. The measure of a human life is not counted in years. It's in what we leave behind in death. We're the same as beasts, desperate to leave offspring. Be it a child, an act, a single word. Some proof, once our days have ended, that we were here. Some trail. For the trail of one man's life is another's beacon of hope. Let hope remain after each of us has left to survive beyond. And as long as it endures, man's history will continue.
The trail of one man's life. The memories written within me are exactly that. Heirlooms of the lives once lived. That is why I am here, to tell their stories. So, what do you make of this?
Okay, so it looks like we unlocked a new chapter called An Interlude in Time. It's going to be a rather big one. It might be... So I can't tell if it's just 3 quests and 2 stories, or 4 quests and 1 story, or what's or not. But I'm very interested in seeing that the very first person we're encountering in this illusionary world after Persepius is Ilisira. That's going to be exciting. So let's go ahead and do Grim. I might edit out some of the fights if we've already seen the monster, just to keep this at about an hour and a half. Because I don't want to go too long, but I want to document all the story, and we're going to go and do a voice lost with Kalem, or Kalim, we'll find out. It's only 4 chapters, so it shouldn't be too bad, but I like this story quite a bit.
It came from up ahead. The sound of a man singing. If a monster had appeared in that moment, I'd have died. The clear, penetrating timbre of it left me defenseless. I was simply transported to another place entirely. A place bathed in light, the sort seen only in paintings.
Oh, apologies.
Upon noticing me, the man ceased his performance. I realized he was no common man. I braced for combat and calmly asked his identity. He simply gave his name, Kalem. Countering my clear hostility with a smile, he walked away. I was compelled to follow after him. I felt I had no choice. And why? Because that was the name of the singer of legend.
Alright, so we're meeting someone incredibly legendary for their voice, and we are enraptured and intrigued. And we'll be going off against the Siren, who I don't believe we've read on, but they're not giving me the choice to read for some reason. It's really weird. It usually does. And I can't even go in here and change my loadout. I don't know if that is a bug or what, but let's find out. Caleb said he was still finishing his songs. Though it looked as though he wanted to be left on his own devices, I took the liberty of following him regardless. There was something mysterious about the singer of legend. I could not dismiss the apprehension I felt.
What would you have me sing?
Proof of a hero. It's really weird that we weren't able to read about the Siren. We'll do that in another episode for sure. It's a big boy. Big girl? Big girl, maybe. Big thing. Broken parts up there, and the head. Small little head. So. Oh, okay, so this is like a palette swap for Cyclops. Knowing that makes this much easier. It's like subspecies if you think about it like that. They've got a similar frame but very different profiles and elements. It allows you to sort of force shadow what type of stuff you can do, or what type of attacks they may do, which is cool. Come on, break the face. Not my face. Going underground, baby. Watch out, it's gonna scream. Oh, come on, I thought I got far enough away. Suppose not. That was a troll move. That was so trolly. Oh my god. Oh, pfft. Caleb, did you win? Okay, never mind. Punk. Thanks, Caleb.
I dedicate my song to this man.
We'll leave it to fate. Oh, she died. Fate said no. To death with you. Okay, never mind. I guess we just, because it's not a mob, we don't get half and half. It's either magic or it's life. It depends on what fate decided. Okay. Works for me. The songstress lips. Weapon. It's like a melee weapon. It's actually a really good one in the game, too. SE plus. Ooh, Defender Sigil 4. Want to unlock that.
Calem. The name of the singer of legend. Former member of Avalon. Calem's song stoked allies' morale and tamed the fiercest fiends in turn. More than music, it was a unique form of magic. But Calem had disappeared years ago and been unheard of since. Exactly why, no one knew. Recently, a new rumor surfaced, claiming Calem had joined Grimm. The truth behind that claim stood before me now. Grimm's Calem was a fake. But how did I know? It was plain to see. The Calem of legend was a woman, Avalon's diva. When word arose that she'd joined Grimm, they'd flown into a panic. Her songs held the power to control the listener's mind. If that power lay in the hands of Avalon's opponents now, that was dire news indeed.
Might a fella ask why you're following me?
I knew for certain he was an imposter inhabiting the name. But somehow I couldn't ignore him. Had I lost my senses? His voice still hung in my ears. I asked this so-called Kalem the reason for his travels.
Why? To finish my songs, of course.
What I'd heard when we met was but a fragment, a work in progress. He claimed it was a song about the unfairness of the world. I was the first to hear even a verse of it.
Okay, on to an Elven Queen. I'm curious, if I go back, was that a bug? Like, can I actually, now change my armor if we go up against, the Siren? We can, so that was a bug. Okay, that's really weird. This episode is getting long, and we already fought the Siren, unfortunately. We had to, miss out on the story for it, but we'll cover that eventually. We've done Elven Queen before, so let's just jump in. The words to his songs came to him when he confronted monsters. Those glimpses of naked human desire brought the words tumbling out in a glorious epiphany. I could not shut my ears to the song of this so-called Kalem, not even in the heat of battle.
What would you have me sing?
Proof of a hero. I keep answering that. Oh, I didn't fix my stuff that broke. I might have to quit this quest. Do I still have a spear, I hope? If not, I'm in trouble. I do. Okay, that's good. Okay, as long as we got a spear, we're good. Elven Queen is one of the fastest hunts in this game. She's very easy. There's a Basilisk, which we have not met yet. It's like a different version of a very similar monster, just like her. That's also very easy. She read? Yes. And kill in style, I think. What do I even have set? I don't even know. I'm gonna rip off my legs. Nice. Oh yeah. So let's go pick a spot and wail on her. Psh. That's gotta tickle. I can't dash. I can't do anything now. Can I please move? There we go. So they're getting quite a bit amount of HP now in this game as we near the end. Lots of points. Legendary, that's good. Ooh, we got new feathers. Cotton-made wings. This is great. That's going to be our endgame evasion stuff. I like it. Ilya. Oh, she's a dark arm. Okay, interesting.
I opted for the direct approach and asked him, "Are you the real Kalem?" By way of response, he began to sing. As if that were answer enough. He wasn't even a woman. From anyone's perspective, he was a fake. But his voice washed all doubt, all logic away. The moment it reached my ears, my heart was stolen. And I loved it. I needed it. Kalem's legends made wild claims that hearts were hers to control. Well, the man before me now couldn't possibly be her. But the effects of his song were just as the legend said. I was sure I'd gladly follow any order given to me in that state. I was under his spell as soon as the first notes entered my ears. Was I being controlled by this imposter's voice? My mind felt crystal clear, yet, despite having no real reason, I followed him still. As if I were his manservant. That diabolical voice's pull. It was said its strength came through sacrifice. The diva had been a musical genius from early childhood. The rumors reached Avalon, and they invited her to join as a singer, despite her young age.
There are two things wrong with that story.
The imposter quietly interjected. The diabolical voice and genius diva were red herrings. He said no more than that. He simply sang. Nothing mattered but the songs. That was his claim.
Oh, even better, we'll have the Basilisk. This is the one that I said, this is like the easiest monster in this game. Because all of its eyeballs are right there at the top, and it's a small frame monster, meaning that pretty much any weapon that hits anywhere wide, which is most, is just going to destroy those eyes. So let's read about the Basilisk. From birth, he was a man plagued with poor health. In times, illness claimed even his sight. Even navigating the corridors of his long familiar home proved challenge in the dark. His days became an exhausting struggle to hone his remaining senses. The man's hearing in particular improved prodigiously. Total desperate dependence, it seems, is a far greater teacher than any who enjoy the gift of sight can fathom. And yet even preternatural hearing could only do so much. The man's life remained a difficult one. Unable to shoulder the burden of his care alone, his parents petitioned the fellow villagers for aid. All who were asked begged off the onerous task, all save one woman. Like the man, this woman scarcely left her home, though it was a deep insecurity about her appearance that kept her housebound. The selfless care she offered the man was exemplary. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these words. Through the warmth of her touch, the man rediscovered the will to live. As if feeding on a newfound joy, his body began a miraculous recovery. The woman, too, was healed by her relationship with the man. She never felt unsure about her appearance in the company of the blind man. As the months passed, the former shut-ins began to spend more and more time out in the world. Their affections grew into a deep, abiding love. One day, the man gave voice to a burgeoning hope of his. "Perhaps the day will come when I'll be able to look upon your face, my love." In truth, patches of light had already begun to pierce the darkness covering the man's convalescing eyes. That optimistic comment saw the woman's face twist into a horrible grimace. And there the man's recovery ended. Instead, his health began to deteriorate at a frightening pace. His days were racked with pain. Light forever left his eyes, and now even his nose was perpetually stopped. Festering boils left his tongue useless. Only his hearing remained sharp as ever before, and the woman's whispered professions of love never ceased. Half a year on, the man sensed his end approaching. He could die happy, thought he, if he could only catch one glimpse of his beloved. The mysterious voice that reached his ear was not that of the woman's. "Pay a fitting price," it spoke, "and you will have what you desire." Yet the man had nothing left to give. Yearning soured to desperation in his breast, and the man knew no peace. Seeing her charged in anguish, the woman knew that death was not far off. As if confessing her sins, she told the man of what she had done. In order to ensure that he remained forever hers, she had replaced his medicine with another substance. Her fears that his love for her would die upon seeing her face drove her to make certain his love outlived his body. The man was cut to the quick by this grim admission. His dotting nurse, his beloved, had done him harm to secure his love. How could she even think that sight could quench his love for her? It was not her appearance he had come to love, but her selfless, caring soul. As if desperation reached its peak, he knew he had found his sacrifice. He gave her gladly. The man's form warped and shifted into something hideous. His keen ears grew into wings, carrying him aloft. His belly split at the sternum, and from within a giant eye peered out. It was an organ crafted from the viscera, putrefied by the woman's poisons. The first sight to grace his newborn eye was that of his former love, writhing in the final agonizing throes of death. In that moment, his desire to look upon her face and his desire for revenge met. Even he not knew which was the stronger. Freedom finally his, the man took to the sky. He made for the horizon without so much as a glance back. The world was finally his to explore. All that remained behind him now was the husk of a woman he had both loved and hated to death. I feel kind of bad for him now. Like, that's not cool. Hang on a second. I need to restore my spells. Like, can you imagine that? Like, he fell in love with her without even being able to see, and yet she poisoned him because she thought she was hideous or something? That's just whack. I could see now why they called his the diabolic voice of legend. There must be some magic at work here. Having heard his song, I was entranced. One could even say controlled. He sings death metal.
What would you have me sing?
Proof of a hero. If I ask enough times, maybe he will eventually do it. Let's do this basilisk. Looks very much like the Elven Queen. Just so easy to break. Okay, where is he? Knock him down. Locking on is probably the worst thing to do here. Ew. It's like a pea pod. Very easy to aim and visually see what you've broken and what you haven't. Oh, you spider. Spooty. Stop it. I guess I should probably help Kaleem. Get up, boy. Takes half my health. I did get the honey tongue from him. This kind of sounds kind of sexy, doesn't it? Honey tongue. All parts done. Let's finish him off. There we go. Kayla may not be happy, I don't care, but I'm going to save the basilisk. He needs to be free. Be free, my man. Okay, if we've got time left, let's quick see if we can find something to gather. We can. There we go. Western Monster Life Shard Plus. Leave it alone. Good, the Spooty survived the onslaught. of the boy with the golden voice. That's a lot of points. And we got everything good.
Why bother following a fella like me around?
He asked, innocently. Because I can't forget your voice. Listlessly, I thirsted for it. If I was under some influence, I would have to break it somehow. Killing him seemed the quickest option, but I found myself unable.
You'd blame my song? Come now.
He couldn't be the diva. Couldn't. But I found myself unwilling to accept reason. Was this the work of the diabolical voice of legend?
Ah, you're beginning to wonder, are you?
The imposter wore a smile.
Beginning to question whether the little diva was a man? That's quite the honor.
He quipped, clearly pleased. These days, no one doubts him. And so, he'd stopped bothering to make the claim. But it was fact. Kalem had been male all along. No one realized it at the time, but the young genius was no diva. Despite the high voice and slim frame, he had always been a boy. But everyone took him for a girl. For a time, he'd even believed it himself. He'd never found common ground with the boys his age, so his friends had naturally been girls. Even his needlework was excellent.
I will point out here, while the localization for this game is absolutely amazing, and super accurate. This is the only line in over 220 hours so far that I've noticed was changed, and this is definitely Sony at work here. In the Japanese version, they say instead of his needlework was excellent, they said even his first crush was on a boy. Sony.
He said it hit him hard. When his body grew, and his voice took on a masculine shade. It was someone else's voice to him. He would never sing the same. Unable to continue his job, he ran from Avalon. If the gods were real, why had they not made him as a woman? Or made him manly from the start, so he wouldn't have to hold these expectations? It's a simple thing to let go of what was never had. Loss only hurts because we know what was taken from us. After wandering for a few years, he learned of Grimm. They exist to fight the cruelty of an unfair world. A world made on the gods' whims. Terwin's words had resonated strongly with him.
Those two lines in the bottom left in particular hit me really profoundly. It's a simple thing to let go of what was never had. Loss only hurts because we know what was taken from us. It's thought-provoking.
He began to sing again, in order to tell others of the unfairness of the world.
But it's nice. I mean, it's sad that he had to go through all that, and it's bad that society has such constructs of what is a man, what is a woman, and stuff like that, when really this is just a young boy trying to struggle with his identity and his position in the world. So I'm very happy that he left Avalon, which seems so old school and like refusing to expand their mind from what they've been taught, to find Grimm, who seems much more open and understands that, you know, everyone's unique. So we are going against the musicians of Bremen. So let's read this. He was a member of the church chorus. His honeyed voice earned him a place in the troupe as a child. Psychological oddity, his range never dropped with age, and he was able to remain in the role well into adulthood. And so he kept singing and thought of little else. Years came and went until he stood at the cusp of old age. His voice now lacked the force it had in use or the richness. He was pressured to retire, let go due to his age. Having lived for his career, his life now stood empty. With nothing to animate him, he seemed to age overnight. His hair grayed and wrinkles appeared. The transformation worried his family. Unable to sing, he'd lost his reason to live. So strong was his attachment to his former career, he wore the chorus robes even in retirement. Age continued to ravage his body until soon his mind too failed. He grew so senile, he mistook the mule he kept for a son. I do that all the time. He soon became a burden on his family, for a man who can't tell a son from a mule can't care for himself. No longer working, he had no income, yet it still cost money to feed him. Enough is enough, they began to say. And so he was ousted once again, this time by his own family. Even senile, he understood. With tragic clarity, he understood. It had happened again. He'd been thrown out. Was it so criminal to grow old? He set out for a place where people gather, the mule considered a son in tow, still dressed in his chorus robes. He began to sing in his creaking voice. Barely a whisper emerged, and even that was garbled. But the passion was unmistakable. It was his appeal to the world. "I am still alive," it exclaimed. In time, people gathered, no doubt moved by the old man's heartfelt performance. Passers-by would stop to listen and leave some coin. Though perhaps ungainly, he stood before them a bona fide singer. Senile or no, he was happy. But audiences are fickle, and the novelty of the old man's performance soon wore thin, leaving only a creaking voice behind. In a few days' time, no one spared him a second look. He would soon be wholly unwanted again. No matter how weak his mind grew, one memory never faded. The desolation of being discarded. He would not suffer that again. That was when it appeared before him, a strange chalice hanging in the air. It spoke. "Pay the price and you shall have what you wish." The relic of legend had chosen him, yet its words could not reach the old man. Age had dulled his mind after all. The old man's wish was granted, though he stood there unawares. It was his son beside him that answered the chalice, the mule he kept in tow. Motivated by senility though it was, the mule was thankful for the love the old man showed. It longed to repay him, and so it offered up its flesh to see its its father's wish granted, to restore the voice he pined for. The man shed years of age in the moments. The mulish traits he grew were likely his son's influence. What's more, his urge to sing brought further changes. The mule man's body took the form of a musical instrument. It was the birth of a strange new instrument that brayed like a mule. Soon the mule man drew curious eyes once more. He was a musician again. He was happy until he noticed his boy had vanished. His panic, though, was short-lived. He found his son soon enough. This time it was a cast-out dog. His body and voice had regained their use, but not his mind. With dog in tow, the mule man sang his asinine songs for passers-by. But even the strangest curiosities lose their novelty with time, and the crowd's interest waned. Once more he fell into despair. Had he been cast aside? Was he unneeded? His voice was steeped in sorrow, but the most impassioned plea became cliched with repetition. More tragic still, his faulty memory kept him from seeing that. As if to compound tragedy, the same scene then played out. The chalice appeared and posed the same bargain verbatim. Again, it failed to reach him. That role fell once more to his son. For the dog too was grateful for the father's love it had been given. It offered of its body to repay the man. The mule man's mouth opened wide, and from his throat emerged a canine face. It sang in a harmony of howls and brays, an instrument like no other, and the crowds returned. Sadness and loss gripped the man a third time now, until he found his son, this time a cat. Although he forgot his prior child, and again the cycle was repeated. The harmony of the mule and dog grew stale, and the man despaired, and the chalice appeared. The thankful cat offered up its flesh in sacrifice. From the mule's mouth sprang a dog's face, from the dog's a cat. And so a harmony of 3 species was born. Still the crowds grew bored. The man's next son was a cockerel. It heard the chalice's offer in a steed and offered up its form. Mule, hound, cat, and rooster now sang in concert. But the cycle ended there. The man's form was now so monstrous that no one would listen to a strangely beautiful song. They were too repulsed. He was finally irrevocably discarded. And so the curious monster still wanders the land in search of anyone who will listen to its song. That's kind of sweet. I feel really bad for him. No one wants him and just keeps discarding him. Some things can never be changed, no matter how hard they may struggle. The world is simply unfair that way. Caleb let slip a heavy sigh.
What would you have me sing?
Proof a hero? Hey, you can't blame a person from trying, right? That song entrances me and puts me in a mood. So much so that it made me fail Fatalis the first time. This reminds me of like those guild quests from Monster Hunter 4. Nothing still, huh? Okay then. I really gotta change out this feather for that gold one we got, because this thing does not last very long. It's like over in a heartbeat. Now that's a chorus if I've ever seen one. Oh, that looks so cool. What are the breakable parts? Oh my gosh, it's just filled with them. Okay, well, let's just do a charge attack then. Woo! It's gotta hit something. You know, I think I actually need to get up in the air a little bit for this one. I keep doing that. Once you charge your axe, it goes away. You have to resummon it, and if you just keep jamming on square button, then what happens is it just spams the platform, which is not what you want to do. Give me your face. Sheesh. Are we gonna fall through the ground or what? What's happening? Oh, jeez. Oh. Get away, get away, get away. Wow, that almost killed me. It's going wild. What am I supposed to do against that? I guess just run away. Like, its head still has tons of stuff to break. And I keep finding myself at its rear end. That's not good. Oh, good gosh. It's going to do it again. I must be a roar type. There's a kitty cat. It's cute. think we got the kitty cat. Did we get everything? No, it's probably one of those deals where he has to like spit it out of his mouth. Watch. It's the chicken. Oh, now it's put it away. Okay, whatever. We'll just kill it. Is it red? You know what? Let's do this in style. Rip those legs off. I got them on those wings. Does it have the chicken out? That would be hilarious. Then I would kill the chicken. Nope, it doesn't. Die! Are you still not dead? Oh my gosh. Oh, Caleb is dead. Gotta save him. Oh shoot, I can't dash. Because I gave up my legs. I can heal. So can he. And I have no weapon. I have to find a weapon to use against him. Unless Caleb can finish him off for me. Is this a weapon? Oh, that's armor. I'll take it. Beggars can't be choosers. Or whatever that phrasing goes. There we go. Weapon. I love the idea of the environmental weapons. It's so smart. Okay, let's beat this thing up. So with these weapons that you get from the environment, if you charge them, they're gone. So you just want to use it for its duration. This must be painful to watch. Oh! Caleb got it. Good shot. That was a lengthy battle, but that was a good one.
I dedicate my song to this monster. You'll regret it.
I want to save him.
You'll regret it if you kill me.
I feel bad for the old man. Bremens. You're okay, my dude. You're okay. It's definitely a more advanced hunt than the Pied Piper, who that model is based off of. I love how they reworked it. Super cool. I saw reviews for like the original game where people complained about reused models. I'm like, okay, they've never played Monster Hunter. I mean, not only are these like subspecies, but they get their own lore, story, attacks, and everything, which is great. Legendary, good. We got all the breaks. No, we didn't. We didn't get the chicken. Yeah, so we only got one of its break parts, but that's fine. Lots of new spells to look at. Let's see the conclusion of this story and wrap it up there. I know this has been a very, very, very long episode.
I finished my song.
As if to test it out, he began to sing his new composition. As I listened, I understood the second mistake in my story. It was as he'd said. The diabolical voice and genius diva were red herrings. There was no trick to Kalem's voice, no special power. It was song, and song alone that stirred the soul. It was so captivating, one felt bewitched. There was no spell, yet I was positively spellbound. I suppose I'd followed him simply hoping to hear more. In a way, you could still say he'd pulled my heartstrings. His song was over. He had lost his old voice, he said, but now had more to sing about. In loss, he had found something new.
I had my share of growing pains, but I'm all the wiser for them.
A song of the world's cruelty. But it was not a sad song. It urged the listener on, filling them with hope and purpose. The legendary diva had returned. Why? Words alone won't explain it. You'll know when you hear it.
That's a beautiful story. Talks about the power of song, how it touches the soul. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. That was a very nice note to end it on. I know this was a very long one, but I'm just trying to plan it out, and we've got 2 more Sorceress Deeds, which are the Avalon stories, which is perfect for its own episode, so I'm happy I did this. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and until next time, happy hunting.